Welcome to the Free from Binge Eating podcast with me, Breed, your host. Binge eating sucks. Trust me, I know. I was stuck in that spiral of binge, restrict, diet, yo-yoing weight loss, feeling guilty and ashamed, and hating my body for 10 years. Now that I'm out, I'm turning my pain into purpose by helping you stop binging, start loving your body, self, and life again. It's time to live free from binge eating. Are you ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today is going to be a short one, and I'm making this because I get this question about once or twice a month from people who are doing the 30-day reboot. So a bit of a disclaimer, I guess. This episode is more relevant, mostly relevant for those who are doing the 30-day reboot or they're working their way through it. And so if you haven't got it, you can still listen. It's probably still pretty relevant if you're trying to work on food freedom and you keep slipping up and feeling like you're a failure and you need to kind of start again in some way. Maybe you're doing someone else's course, I don't know. But it's mostly for those who are doing the course. So the question that I get is something along the lines of, I feel terrible. I've binged yesterday. I feel stuffed. I feel disgusting. And I'm on like day 3 of the 30-day reboot. What should I do? Should I start again at day 1? I feel like a failure. What do I do? And typically I get this from people who are on like between day 2 and 10. So they've kind of gone into the course on this this feeling of excitement, hope something's going to change. And they start the first few days and they love it. And then they have a binge and they feel like a complete failure and they just don't know what to do. So I'm going to walk through my take on this. And I say my take because I think this journey is so personal. So if you disagree with everything I'm saying right now and it's just not how you feel about this concept of going back to day 1, by all means, go back to day 1, do it as you want. For me, this whole course, the 30-day reboot, and in general, just food freedom, a huge part of it to me is getting back in touch with yourself, your needs, what your body needs, what your emotions need, and taking care of yourself the way that works best for you. So yeah, this advice might just not work best for you. So you do you, but I'm just going to share my advice anyway because people sometimes ask for it. And so here we go. First thing I want to say is it's so normal. I want to reassure you that it is so normal to binge early on in the 30-day reboot. Let's be real. You've likely been struggling with this binge restrict cycle or just, difficulties with food for at least a few months, if not many years, even decades. So it's so unrealistic to expect that you're just suddenly going to stop binge eating just because you started a course. I know the 30-day reboot is a really good course, but it's not that good. That's just magically, as soon as you start it, your binge eating is gone. So don't put that pressure on yourself to do this 180 overnight. You need time to learn these new tools that I'm going to teach you in the 30-day reboot. And way more importantly is you need time to actually implement them and find out, okay, which one works for me, which one am I gonna, forget about, discard, it just doesn't really resonate with me. And then once you kind of discover which ones are working, you need more time to practice it and see change. A big part of what an ingredient for change is consistency. And, if you're day 3, day 4, day 10 of the 30-day reboot and you've binged, you haven't even had time for that consistency yet, let alone even, figuring out which tools work for you and learning them all even yet. And also, actually, one more thing I just want to jump in and add is that I also get this sort of, panicked question, should I start the 30-day reboot again? For people who also they got halfway through or 3/4 way through, and then just something big happened in their life, maybe not a slip up, maybe not a binge, just something big happened and they, forgot about the course or had to focus on other things for weeks or months. Then they come back and they're like, should I start all over again? I think this all somewhat still relates to that person. This is so unstructured how I'm saying this right now. Hang on. I'm going to get back to this person's example later. hang on. Okay, back to where we were. It's really normal. You're going to binge 100%. Like, you're not going to suddenly stop binging at the start of the course. So now that that's sort of like, you've got that reassurance, it's so normal. Pretty much everyone is going to binge at the start of the course. Then let's move on to the next point, which is, you've heard it before. This is sort of related to the previous point, but healing is not linear. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be challenges, obstacles, for example, binges, but, other things too, like maybe, another obstacle could be you go to the beach, you felt horrible in your body. That's like, it feels like a setback, like, oh, I'm not making progress. Or you went to the restaurant and you ended up just ordering the side salad with no dressing. It felt like, oh, I'm not really making progress. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I move forward? But I want to also say, like, it's not going to be linear. And while the end goal of this 30-day reboot journey is, you've learned how to stop binge eating entirely. You feel so much more chill about food. You can focus on other things in your life. You're more kind towards your body. Another part of this journey, though, is actually learning how do we move through these tougher moments when they do happen, because they will happen. As I said, you're gonna binge in the course at some point. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone who hasn't binged during the 30-day reboot. So it's about learning, okay, how do we fix this problem, long term, but also in the moment, how do we actually deal with it when the slip-ups do happen, so we don't freak out and be like, oh my God, I have to start all over again. Like, I've ruined everything. I'm a complete failure. Let's go back to square one. It's about learning, how do we give ourselves a bit of kindness, be more gentle, compassionate in those moments, sort of step back out of that panicked mindset, view ourselves from what you'll learn on the 30-day reboot is that higher self mindset of like, okay, that future self who's already got through this whole problem, how would they deal with these kind of moments? What would she say to me right now? How would she act? So it's about learning, that kindness, compassion, peace, and more importantly, not more importantly, but as importantly, learning from these moments and improving each time. So learning, okay, why did I binge on day 3? Why did I binge on day 10? What happened there? Let me be real with myself. Did I eat enough that day? Was I low-key trying to restrict in the background, still hoping for weight loss? Did I just have a really tough day? And, I got home and it's just my habit. When I have a tough day, I go to binge. So how can we learn and make one tiny improvement each time? Just moving a little step forward each time. I think that's probably one of my favorite parts of the 30-day reboot is just how it teaches you in general to become more resilient to life's challenges. Because, whether it's going to be a binge eating episode, a horrible day at work, someone ghosting you who you really wanted to go on a date with, life is going to throw things at you. And we need to, learn how can we be resilient in these moments rather than always needing a crutch like food to just kind of barely get us through each time. It's so empowering to be like, you know what? Shitty things are going to happen. Stressful things are going to happen. Terrible things are going to happen. And yeah, I might, crumble a little bit at the start because we're all human, but I'm going to be able to get through it and be stronger on the other side. I'm going to pause right there for a minute to share something with you. So if you've been listening so far and feel like you're ready to start your recovery journey with me, I've got the perfect springboard. That is my free masterclass, Why You're Still Binge Eating and How to Stop. It's a 35-minute free video masterclass where I'll walk through all of the reasons you might still be binging. Then I'll give you 3 actionable steps to stop binge eating. So if you're looking for actual results in your life, want to never binge again, trust me, I know the feeling. I was stuck for 10 years doing that. Then head to the show notes to get instant access today. I'll also gift you something for joining me at the masterclass, but I'll leave that surprise for you to find out for yourself. Life is just so damn short, and it's not worth feeling so miserable, unhappy, unhealthy with binging taking over. So watch the masterclass today to start your new life. Okay, let's get back into the show. Okay, so I kind of set the scene, but to really answer the question, should I go back to square one every time I have a slip up? My opinion, and again, remember, totally personal, you do you, but I think you shouldn't go back to square one because of these reasons. 4 reasons. Number 1, starting the course over every single time you have a binge or slip up, to me, that insinuates that you're going back to square one with your healing. Like, it's like, oh, we've ruined everything. We need to go back to square one, start everything all over again. It's like all of those efforts that you've already put in, all of the learnings, everything has been pointless so far. And the thing is, you're not back at square one with your healing. You know, whether it was you're 3 days into your journey or you're 29 days or however many days, you've already learned things. You've already probably had a bit of a mindset shift. You've already made improvements. You've already started thinking or implementing changes. You are not the same person even as you were at the start. You've already changed a bit. So to me, it's just kind of like, it's a little bit insulting and a little bit of a punishment that every time we mess up, oh, we have to go all the way back to square one again. It kind of also makes you feel like you're making less progress because like you're just like back to square one every single time. So that's one reason for me. Another is that to me, again, it says to me that a binge is a failure. And it's, you know, again, we have to punish ourselves. We have to go back to square one because we failed and we messed up. Newsflash, and I remind you this so much in the 30-day reboot, a binge is not a failure. You are not a failure for binge eating. A binge is simply a signal. It's a sign. It's a clue that something just isn't quite right. Like we need to make a bit of a change. And it's your turn. It's like a sign to you. Okay, we got to listen to our body, to our mind. What's going on under the hood? What needs are not being met? How can we fulfill those needs in a more healthy, loving way? Tend to ourselves a little bit more. So, for example, you know, maybe it was a signal that we just weren't eating enough throughout that day or the last few days. And now we get to learn from that and be like, you know what? We haven't been taking care of ourselves as well as we could. Let's make sure we get more food in. Let's eat to fullness at all of our meals and see that change happen. Maybe it's that you're not eating enough variety and diversity in food, not enough balanced meals. So again, that's a sign. Okay, I haven't really been eating, you know, a balanced diet lately. Let me take care of myself a little bit more. As if, imagine this is like your child, basically. Like, you'd be like, okay, why is this happening to my child? And how can I take better care of this child? It's kind of like seeing yourself as this little being, this little, and we talk about the inner child in the 30-day reboot, but sort of like that inner child, like how can I better take care of her? Another example could be, yeah, like you had that really emotional day, something terrible happened and you just, all these emotions, you know, surfaced and you didn't know how to handle it and you just went to a binge to escape and to numb out. Again, this is a signal, okay, there's something going on. It's probably this emotional thing that's been happening lately. How can I better just take care of myself, like love myself a little bit more in the way that I really need to be loved? So if you start over every single time you binge, to me, you also don't really give yourself room for that learning moment. It's almost like, oh my God, we're a bit panicked. Let's just, you know, wipe the slate clean, try again, but not actually being like, okay, but let's change something this time. My third reason to not go back to square one every time you have a slip up is, for me, it's kind of giving the vibe of, I've got to start being good again on Monday, get back on track. It's giving that vibe for me, which is like reminiscent of deep into diet culture days and just always need to be like, when you fell off the wagon, you got to get back on track and start everything all over again. And usually like have this burst of motivation at the start, but kind of again, back to the last point, but not saying, okay, but what needs to change this time? Like, how can we learn and improve? In this food freedom journey, we're trying to let go of that perfectionism of like, everything has to be perfect. Otherwise we've messed up, we've failed, and then we've got to start again. We want to let go of that black and white thinking of like, you're either a failure or a success with food. Everything, you got to eat either really clean or it's a crazy binge food. And we also want to let go of this catastrophic thinking of like, oh my God, I've ruined it. I've failed the course. We've got to start again. So we're trying to, you know, learn that it's okay to not be perfect with your body, with the way you look. It's okay not to be perfect with every single thing that you eat. It's about learning, how can we pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off a little bit, you know, give ourselves that hug that we need, because yeah, while a binge is not a failure, I know it still feels horrible and it sucks and you feel disgusting and all that. So give yourself that hug you need and then learn, okay, what happened? How can we take a little bit of a step forward, make it a bit of a change so this might not happen next time, or it might not happen as extreme. And then we'll just keep iterating and making improvements over time. And my last reason why I don't think that you should go back to square one is that, following on from the last point, if you have that feeling of, oh my God, I got to get back on track, let's start over, be good again on Monday, that feeling, I know it definitely did for me during my struggles, might also justify this like one final binge, one last binge situation. You might think, well, I'll start the course on day one, on Monday, so now I've got Saturday and Sunday, you know what, let me just let loose a little bit, have one big binge, my last one ever, and then I'll be good from then on, we'll figure it all out. That sort of last supper mindset is something we're trying to release in this food freedom journey. We're trying to move towards a more balanced approach to food where, we're not oscillating between these highs of huge binges where you get that adrenaline rush. So those highs aren't as high, and then the lows with this extreme restriction aren't as low. We just want to be kind of a little bit more in the middle, where it doesn't have to be super bad or super good. It can be, maybe we overate at that dinner because there was some really delicious stuff. Okay, and then there's maybe other lows where, I don't know, one day you're just not as hungry, but mostly you're sort of in that middle where you're just eating to fullness, you're taking care of your body, you're feeling pretty chill. So you want to learn to move on after a bigger meal without needing to undo and start all over again and be good. Because having that bigger meal, whether it's a binge, overeating, slightly overeating, whatever, it's not even bad. It's not something that we need to undo. And we want to let go of that thinking of we're good or bad based on the food that we've been eating or how much we've been eating. So that's my take on what to do if you relapse or binge during recovery. Now, just to return to that thing that I mentioned earlier about if you're in a different situation where you were, say, day 20 or wherever on the 3rd-day reboot, you were doing it, and then something just came up and just took your attention away from the course, you dropped off, and not necessarily food related. It's not like you had this big relapse. What should you do? Should you start from day one? For this, I think it's a little bit different. I think it's really up to you, because a lot of my points as to why you shouldn't start from square one were related more to the food side of things and you seeing as a binge as a failure and needing to be good again. But if you have totally dropped off from the course and you probably, if it's been a long time, probably even forgotten the stuff that you've already done, I don't see any issue with starting it again. Again, totally up to you though. If it was me, I would probably just finish the course first because I'm sure things will come back to you, but totally up to you on that. If it was a huge relapse situation and then you left the course for months, I think that's, again, a personal one. If you feel like you've just forgotten everything that was on the course and you just want to start again and relearn the things, then that's fine. But it's so tricky because I don't want you to have this feeling of just even if it's a big relapse that we have to start all over again because you're not at square one. That relapse, I'm sure you've learned things. You probably have a different mindset already. So I would probably still say to finish the course and then if you want, redo the course because for the aforementioned reasons, but also just thinking back to a few clients that I've had, one being a woman called Alex, and she was on my podcast 2 or so years ago, and she's now just totally fine with food. She actually did the course 2 times over. I've had a few people do this, where the first time they did it, and you were working through the tools, you're trying things out, and you saw some success, and then they redo it, and you almost see things in a different light, a different perspective, because, as I said, you're not the same person, you've already changed. So there's nothing terrible about, finishing off where you left off and then go and do the course again with, continuously learning with a different mindset. So those are my views. And if you are not on the 30-day reboot yet and you just, this kind of enticed you, you're interested to see what's on the course and you want help with your food freedom journey, It's in the show notes, the link to that course. You can check it out, learn more. And if you're on the 30-day reboot and you're feeling like you just want a bit of a one-to-one chat with me, remember that I've got the 30-minute calls that you can book, and I'm going to leave the link below in the show notes too. So if there's anything very specific to you and your struggle, anything very personal that you want to discuss with me that maybe isn't touched on enough in the course, maybe it's a struggle that keeps kind of like keeping you back and you want to talk it through with me, book that call as well in the show notes. That's it for this episode. Hopefully it was helpful. And as always, remember you can DM me any questions on Instagram and I'll try to answer it here as well in a podcast episode in lots of detail. And hopefully you all have a lovely week and I will see you next time. See you guys. And that's the scoop for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something new that you can start applying to your life. It really helps my podcast to grow and reach more women who are struggling as well when you rate and review. So if you got a spare minute, I would appreciate it so much if you could rate and review. And if you took something from this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share it with someone in your life. Change someone's day, mood, or even their life. Be that person. I know I absolutely love it when my sister sends me podcast episodes. It just shows me she's thinking of me and she wants to help me elevate alongside her. As always, feel free to DM me on Instagram at freewithbreed. I'm always open for feedback and let me know what you want me to speak about on the podcast because after all, this podcast is for you. Okay, that's it from me. Have a wonderful rest of your day and I will see you next time.